Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fridays at 5. This is a special edition of Fridays at 5, which is Ask the Linguist with Dr. Barr. Hello, Dr. Barr. There we go. Dr. Robin Barr is the linguist in residence at American University. She is also the lead educator at the Washington Literacy Center and also the lead phonologist at Vowel, where she works with us on all kinds of things. And that's just 3 of her hats. She has about 8 different hats. But that's a good way to introduce you, Dr. Barr. We get together for Ask the Linguist about once every 6 weeks or so, and the questions have been mounting. We have quite a few that are collected, and Dr. Barr is going to address them in the order she decides is the best. But if you have more questions, you can add those now in the chat, and we will, either make sure she knows about them, but also I know, Dr. Barr, you're great about looking at the chat. Okay.
Probably, although you might need to call my attention to it if I miss it.
Great.
If I'm sharing something, I might not see it. Yeah.
Well,
do you want me to start?
Yeah, I'll just say as sort of a preface for anyone who's new, who's watching or listening to the recorded session, that we at Vowel approached language in a slightly unconventional but pretty powerful way. We try to look for the smallest solution to the problem. I think that's kind of a short way of putting it. And at the same time, Ask the Linguist gives us an opportunity to go deep on the details about how language sounds, what it looks like, and everything in between those two poles of the football field, how it looks and what it sounds like. So with no further ado, I'll open up to Dr. Barr. What's the first question?
The first question is from Gilson, and he asks, why does the black cat vowel in family sound different from the black cat vowel in the word blast? And since I'm not hearing what he's saying, I can't tell him for sure what the issue is. There's 2 different dialects in which those would sound different. In my dialect, they're the same. So family, blast, it works out the same. But there are 2 different dialects that might be involved in this question. And I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to go back in time. I'm going to show you. I'm going to take the 4th dimensional approach to vowels, and I'm going to show you a picture of England in the 17th century. I don't know if you can see this really well, but I'll make it a little bit bigger there. So this is what England, a picture of England, dialects of England in the 17th century. And what we have here enclosed by this blue circle, blue isogloss. So London is down here somewhere. I don't know if you are familiar enough with the geography of England to be able to tell, but here we have London, and here we have the East Anglia and the Midlands. And what we have radiating from London here is a sound change that happened in the late 17th century in England, which took the vowel a, the black cat vowel, and moved it back to olive sock sound in words that had voiceless fricatives after it. So a voiceless fricative, that would be an F, a F, so a half becomes hoth. A th sound, so the voiceless th, so path becomes poth. Voiceless S, so grass becomes grass, glass becomes gloss. All right. And also before a nasal plus a voiceless consonant. So ant would become aunt, sample would become sample, dance would become dance. All right. And this became the prestige pronunciation in 17th century England. So the upper classes and the people who had money were the ones who would pronounce it this way, and their pronunciation spread a little ways through England, not everywhere in England, but enough so that now most of the south of England uses this pronunciation. Okay, now what about in the US? Well, the US participated in some of the changes that happened in England, but only in those places that still had close colonial contact with the south of England. So if you look at this map of the eastern coast of the United States, you'll see, and Canada, you'll see that there are places where R drop, dropping the R before consonants, happened in New England and New York, also in Jamestown, Virginia. Looks like they've got Washington, D.C. here too, and in Charleston, South Carolina, and also in the Mississippi Delta area. And this is why in the south of the United States and also in Black English, there is a dropping of the R before consonants. But that also happens in New York City and in New England. Right? That change happened before the broad A change that I was just telling you about, with the poth, gloss, blast change. So that you see that the broad A area is much smaller. It's this the blue area here that is just a subset of the R drop area. So the R drop area had longer to spread than the broad A did. But you'll still find people in Boston, for example, saying bathtub and glass of water and so forth, one half. And where I grew up in the Chicago area, that pronunciation was considered pretentious. Okay, so you know, I can laugh and dance and sing would be how you would talk about a very a woman who was putting on airs in finishing school or something like that. So it would be a very upper class false accent, maybe something like you might find in a 1930s movie. So an interesting, what they might have called a mid-Atlantic accent. So that's the broad A. So if you are encountering somebody who says blast with the olive pronunciation instead of the black cat pronunciation, and you're comparing it to the black cat pronunciation of family, that would be a difference between the two words blast and family. Let me go on to the next picture, and I'll show you a different issue that might involve those two words. Let me skip over this. Okay, here we go. So there's another change that happens in American English, separate from the broad A, where the black cat vowel can be raised and diphthongized from a to yeah, mainly before nasals, as in man. You've all heard Liz's tan man discussion. It also happens in some dialects, like the Philadelphia area, before some of the voiced consonants. So bad is one that does appear in some of the urban areas. And then general hat, which would be for any a, would be a more I guess you'd have to say it's a change of the vowel altogether, and it would be the same vowel in blast as in family. But if you have a complementary distribution between the this diphthongized before nasals versus non-diphthongized, as in hat or blast, then again you will notice a difference in the sound, even though they're still allophones of the same phoneme. So there's no word that is differentiated because one has an and the other has an ah. right, or ah. So it's not cat versus hat. There's no such distinction between words. So that's my explanation of why you might be hearing two different vowels, black cat vowels in the words blast and family, and it's either because the A is before the ST, which would be the English rule of so-called broad A, changing blast to blast, or it could be the American Northern Cities vowel shift, which might change family to family. So to yeah.
Fun. Do you think
Any
that maybe,
questions?
yeah, I was curious because I know that this question was raised by Gilson, who speaks Brazilian Portuguese. Could there
Yeah.
also be an aspect of what he brings to the table to that question?
Well, I know that they have nasalized vowels in Brazilian Portuguese, but I'm not sure how it affects the location of the vowels, or if it does.
Yeah, and I see Dorley's actually joining us, who speaks Brazilian Portuguese, but she's still keying into the audio. Well, that's fascinating. Any other questions or comments on that topic? We have so many great questions today, so we could move.
I know the tan man black cat distinction is one that people talk about a lot because it is pretty salient for speakers of American English, especially since the tan man pronunciation is considered by a lot of people to be disfavored. So you get people making fun of it on TV, like with the nanny is a stereotypical person who pronounces family and the nanny, and exaggerates that pronunciation. And it's particularly interesting because of the you'd call it a metalinguistic description of, oh, they have such nasal A's. The nasal A is considered to be disfavored. He speaks nasally. We did a study of this once, and we decided that they have nasal vowels was just what you call a dialect you don't like. So if you don't like somebody's pronunciation, you just say, oh, he's just so nasal. But I don't ever remember hearing anybody say that about people with a French accent, right? Because a French accent is higher class, or and the French actually have nasal vowels, right? I mean, they really are nasal, but people don't make fun of the French for speaking nasally, right? So it's an interesting metalinguistic judgment that people make. So watch out whenever you hear the word nasal. That's something to watch, to be careful of.
Does that go hand in hand with guttural?
Guttural is sort of the opposite. Guttural has guttural is the French, the German influence. So if it's guttural, it's got lots of velars and pharyngals and things like that. A velar sound is sometimes considered to be they don't use the word velar, but velarization is what you hear in at least American cartoons for people who are not very bright, like Bullwinkle. Bullwinkle the moose talks like this. He has a very velarized vowel system. He talks like this, and you could velarize your vowels by lowering the velum when you talk.
I think we should all do that for the rest of the session.
We could do that for the rest of the session. Yes, we could all talk like Bullwinkle the moose. Yeah. Jennifer is going to try. Yes.
Wonderful. Well,
I'm not going to try. But are you saying that because Gilson speaks Portuguese, Brazilian Portuguese, which has nasal vowels, that he might be a little bit more sensitive to that, hearing that raising when a vowel is followed by M or N?
I don't know. Let's ask Dorley. So Dorley, do you notice a difference when I say family versus family?
Yeah, I hear it, and Brazilian would would have a hard time to just would be more ain. Familia, 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 and this is family, a little harder.
So you wouldn't necessarily nasalize the vowel in familia.
Not in that one, no.
It wouldn't be fang because it's not syllable final, I guess. It's familia.
But the tendency in English would be doing like in Portuguese, familia instead of familia, like in Spanish. Fa would be fa.
Okay, so I don't hear a nasal in that pronunciation. So perhaps if Gilson hears a nasal in family, that
I see.
that adds a little something. Okay.
No.
So we're curious about why he was interested in that, but maybe he can explain if he ever watches this. Okay.
Great.
Should I go to the next question?
Well, I'd like to come over to the chat because we got our live people, and I'll tell you that.
Okay, should we do the live people? Let me go.
Yeah, so let me read Doug's. How does a word become understandable in many languages, like okay or mama or Coke?
Okay, I've got two answers to this, Doug. The first one, mama, why is this a universal word? The answer to that is kind of surprising. This is innate. This is something that all babies will produce. And it doesn't matter what the language is. This is an element of a universal of child language that the children actually are teaching to the parents. So the reason that languages have ma or mama or nana or something nasal as the word for mama is because that is the sound that babies are most likely to make while they're nursing. So imagine that you're experimenting with your production of sound and as a baby, and you're and so right now you have only two main features. You've got vowels and consonants, so maximally open vowels and maximally closed consonants. So you go ah, ba, ba, or da, 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 da. Okay, so that's very common baby talk. That's what they've got at that age. Well, suppose you put a bottle in their mouth or a nipple or whatever in their mouth, and what happens if you have to if their mouth is closed, instead of getting ba ba ba, you get ma 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 ma. So when the baby is nursing, most likely from a mother, the baby is more likely to use nasals because the mouth is full, so the air comes out the nose. Whereas without when the baby is not nursing, then the default is ba ba ba, which is why most words for mother in around the world in any language are likely to have nasals in it. And if you compare the words for father, they will be the ones that are non-nasal. So dada or papa or baba for the words for father. So this was discovered by Roman Jakobson, I think in 1950 something. He has a little article called "Why Mama and Papa," but it comes from his exploration of language universals and child language acquisition of those features, and this is why you have this universal distribution of mama. So mama is universal because we borrow it from the kids. The other words, though, okay and Coke, are let's see, Coke is what's called a borrowing. Well, it's a cultural borrowing, meaning that you're borrowing the name along with the object. All right, so you borrow the drink Coke, then you borrow the word for Coke, right? And depending on what your culture is, you may translate it into something that works better in your own language, or you may keep that pronunciation. But that's why, in fact, if you look at, there's a nice example of this using a soft drink in New England. there was a soft drink called Moxie. Moxie, how many of you ever tried Moxie? Okay, it's an acquired taste. It's might be a little bit like root beer, and there's a line of the distribution of Moxie around like a circle around Boston, I guess was the distribution area of that particular carbonated beverage. And inside that line, that's where people call a soft drink tonic, and instead of pop or soda. So the New England word for a soft drink as a tonic comes from the use of Moxie, which is kind of medicinal tasting. And that's what they called it. And also saying somebody has a lot of Moxie comes from that. They have a lot of ginger. They have a lot of chutzpah. They have a lot of spunk. So they have a lot of energy. They have a lot of Moxie, and that would come from being having drunk the tonic Moxie. Means you're more excitable. So that's an example that works kind of like Coke. Right? As
Okay,
for
well,
okay, oh sorry, go ahead, Doug.
yeah, this came up because I had a class, we were talking about rhythm, and I gave them this little poem about a bat.
Uh-huh.
And the poem was tinkle, tinkle, little bat, I wonder where the potty's at. To the left or to the right, this cave is really dark at night. Little bat, why the frown? Did you tinkle upside down? And it didn't even get a smile. But what I found out was none of them understood the word tinkle.
Ah, okay. So
After we had the discussion, they said, oh, you mean pee. And I had 4 different languages in there, and it was the Arabic speaker that figured out that it meant pee. And they all understood pee. And I said, how can they understand pee across? We had Arabic and Farsi and Spanish and Portuguese and one other one I don't remember, but they all understood pee, but none of them understood tinkle.
well, those are all poetic. The European baby talk word tends to be pp.
Yeah.
So in French, or I see lots of nods. Any other languages that works for Spanish? PP. Portuguese.
Pinkel,
Okay.
Pinkel in German. Pinkel
German
in
also.
German.
Okay. And so that's onomatopoetic. Piss is one that is pretty universal too. As a, I'm sorry, Karen, but that's as an onomatopoetic word, because I've cracked her up now. Because that's what it sounds like. Psst, okay.
It's Old English too, isn't it?
That so pisse in French would fit as well.
Mhm.
Tinkle is something that is that tends to be more English, because it's based more on the sound pattern of English. I think the ink part for like ringing a bell or something. I guess it depends on what your what kind of vessel you're peeing into. But I don't want to do. Okay, we're not going to do experiments, Karen.
We're doing all of the bodily functions today, apparently. Let's
Yeah,
just
well,
be careful.
I thought they should have got it from the context.
But that's why, and also P is more common than tinkle, all right,
Yeah.
as a euphemism, right? So
Yeah.
so that's probably why P works. Okay, which was the other one you asked about, is a really interesting one. Okay is one of the mystery words, the words that have etymologies that are so unlikely that linguists hold their noses and say, boy, this sounds like a really stupid etymology, but it's the best one we've got. And the word okay is said to come from the misspelling of all correct as OLLKORRECT that was popular in late 19th century American newspapers. Okay, so they had funny people would misspell things this way, and then they would abbreviate it as okay, because that was something that people did at the beginning of the 20th century. And it just caught on because there wasn't a word that allowed that it fit into, or there was a lexical gap. So okay meaning yes, I agree, or yes, it's all right, or please proceed, is more specific than yes. Okay, so it's hard to come up with a single translation of okay into other languages, which is why other languages are borrowing okay, because there's a functional reason to use it. But I noticed that in England, okay is used a little bit differently from in the United States. I don't know if you've picked up on that. In the United States, I would say okay to mean yes, let's do it. I agree, let's go. In the UK, I've heard okay used as I'm okay, which is also what I've seen in the United States, but less so about meaning I agree, let's do it. French d'accord. It wouldn't be that. So I don't know if anybody else has noticed that. Jennifer, as a quasi Brit, have you noticed any difference in okay usage?
I can't say that I have noticed that. I don't think, well, I don't know that
Okay.
I don't know if they say it quite as much as maybe we do, but
Yeah.
I haven't really noticed that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But in just about any language in the world, if you say it, they will know what you mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that has it's only been 100 years or so, but it's really taken over because it fills a nice fills a pre-existing gap
yeah.
in discourse.
I think that like the function and the meaning though too, because people use it like if something's difficult to understand and you say, they're like, okay, it's like I understand you and continue now, but it's like slow, and it depends on how they say the okay. It's nice and
Yeah.
slowly. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Yes, it's okay. It's all right.
like
Okay.
more like
Okay.
functional. It's like how, I don't know, then that would make a difference.
Okay.
Because we use it like in that stressed way and stretching it out. It's like, I understand, not totally, but I understand. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. All right. So it could be like we use all right, or like we use yes with the same intonation,
Yeah.
but it has more widespread use. Yeah, Karen.
Well, I was going to say, speaking of stress and moving along, Jennifer
Yes.
posted a really great question. She said, we often talk about, especially in the color vowel approach, that if you get the stress, the emphasis on the right syllable, that we're mostly understood. And yet, when we compare some British words and North American words, there are stress differences. Maybe we're thinking of words like garage versus garage. So she asks, what's up with that? And how come we still understand what they're saying?
I can't always understand what they're saying. So let me see if I can think of an example.
I would
the
have,
other
while
day.
you're thinking, I'll agree. I think Jennifer come with that by dialectal, insight. For a
But
lot of
like when we watch BBC News a lot, and for the life of me, I cannot remember. There are two words that get used rather often in news reports. And every time they say it, it just strikes me because it's so different than the way we say it. And I can't even when I can remember the word, I can't pronounce it because it really takes mental gymnastics to put
Yeah.
the syllable
Well,
stressed
I
differently. And I can't
I
remember.
remember one of
It's
them.
not just like advertisement or something like
Yeah,
that.
I
It's
remember
something.
one. It's like he's frustrated instead of frustrated would
Mhm.
be, and a lot of ones.
That's one.
And there's another one or two that are based on the noun frustration, and then for the verb in American English we accent the first syllable frustrate, and but they keep it where the stress is in the noun. So he's frustrated. So I don't want to frustrate you, and that just seems backwards to me. I can't do that, but that's what I've heard on the BBC also. So that is a tendency I've noticed, that they're using the stress pattern for the noun to be used in the verb. But I don't. It's hard for me to understand it. I do have to do some mental gymnastics.
I've also heard that like with like the verb, I forgot which one, but it's kind of like demonstrate. They'd say demonstrate. I mean, they'd say it like that. And I'm like,
demonstrable is demonstrate,
yeah,
demonstrative,
yeah.
demonstrate. Yeah.
Or advertisement is one that comes to mind.
Yeah, advertisement is the one Jennifer brought up. An
There's
advertisement.
one that's just really, I'll have to ask my husband because he remembers these things
Yeah.
better than I do.
So,
But-
but I've noticed that with the frustrate example, and it might be similar to something Asian. So if anybody else can think of one, that would be interesting.
It's just actually something along the lines, but they say, you know, we say Renaissance and they say Renaissance, and the Renaissance is like really moving, and it really throws you whenever I hear it, and I know how they say it. I've heard it so many times, and it's like Renaissance, and I'm like, whoa, what? Because it's just so moving, it's so different from Renee.
Dawn brings up an interesting example of conversate. Is it conversate? That would be a back formation from conversation. It's like orientate from orientation. So usually formations like that are blocked by the existing word like converse or to orient. But if you mean something slightly different, like to orient somebody might be considered different from go through orientation, that is to orientate somebody. And same with perhaps conversation. To engage in a conversation may mean something different than to converse. I don't know. To converse versus to conversate. That's the only way I can think of it working.
Vaccine. Somebody said vaccine is one. Address,
Vaccine.
I think.
Vaccine.
Address, I hear Americans saying,
Oh.
you know, sort of either or, depending. But
what's your address?
so,
What's your address?
you know,
Yeah.
oh, I know what the word Richard just told me. Thank God for texting. Okay, we say controversy, and they say controversy.
Controversy.
I think I'm saying and it just, I mean, you really have to kind of stop and think about it to pronounce it the other way. So
I don't know why they stress it.
Why
there. I
do
can't
they
give
do
you an
it
answer.
if you
I
don't
can't
know?
give you an answer. I do
But-
not know the answer.
But how can we understand? I mean, how does that, you know, if we're always saying stress is the thing, you know,
Well,
stressing
I
that's
don't
the-
understand them.
I
Okay.
would say the same. And I've been avoiding saying anything because the one example I have is just going to add to our like taboo body words kind of theme going on.
Oh, I know what you're thinking of. You're thinking of Call the Midwife.
No, this was
Oh.
actually a BBC story that I heard, and I didn't hear it in Call the Midwife. It was a BBC story that I was listening to about research on vaginal cancer. And I spent the whole story
vaginal,
saying
okay.
what this was about, because vaginal just did not, I mean, I really didn't hear that. Cervical
Oh, yes.
and cervical,
And
that's what it was.
urinal.
Cervical, that would never
instead
work.
of your, yeah.
Right. So I don't think we understand easily. I think
Yeah.
it starts to put a pretty heavy draw on that boat of understanding, and we do a lot of compensation. That's my thought. Dr. Barr?
We have compensatory,
Nice.
compensatory. Is it compensatory or compensatory, right?
Compensatory.
But yeah, so usually AL is a stress shifting ending. So now of course I can't think of anything, but usually if you add AL to something, you change the stress pattern. But for vagina to vaginal and cervical instead of cervical, I can't imagine having non-initial stress on those, even if you have the original form. So it could be leveling out from another form of the word, but it's surprising to me that they don't preserve that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just the fact that it does take those mental gymnastics to even try to pronounce it in the British English way really does highlight the fact that stress is sort of is so important to us in
It's phonemic.
understanding.
It's one of the phonemes. It's as if they picked a different consonant to use instead of if instead of controversy they said controversy or something like that. To me, is the same effect as saying controversy, just putting the stress on the wrong syllable.
I had this, like, when I traveled like a lot overseas, like a long time ago before color vowel. And I would always like joke with if I was around British speaking people, I would say, they would understand each other. Like, well, how's come you understand me? And they go, well, we watch your TV all the time.
Yeah, well,
So
that's true.
that was
Yeah.
it. Yeah, that's it. And it's like, and I understood
yeah,
that
if
better.
you're listening to BBC shows set in, I don't know,
Yeah.
Yorkshire or Wales or something, it may take a while before you can listen to it. Or I had a grandmother who refused to listen to some of them because she could never understand them. I mean, and with me, it takes a while for our brains to at least make the translation from.
I watched like a real I forget what it's called, social realism or something movie, and it was like in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and I put on the subtitles, and then I went
Train spotting or something.
for the first 15 minutes, and then I went back to the beginning, and I could really understand it a lot more without the subtitles. It just like did a little experiment.
But again, it makes you wonder, well, what does it mean to have the same language as somebody else when two dialects can be multiply mutually unintelligible, which is true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. Thank you.
I have some additional questions that people have asked over time. Jennifer, this is one of yours, I think. It involves a little film. Let me share that so you can see what it looks like. Okay, where is it? This one, not one, this one. Okay, let's see what this looks like. I'm just going to turn it in, share it this way. Hang on.
Oh boy, nobody loves me. He's just a poor boy from a poor family, sparing his life from this monstrosity.
Last night I dreamt of San Pedro.
But one objective.
Every time you go away, you take a piece of me with you. But take a stupid
That's funny.
getting jiggy with it. Getting jiggy with it.
All right. Okay.
So how does this work, Robin? Why is this humor possible?
What's interesting here is that these are all ambiguous phonetically, and if we're given a context, we will remake the word in to make the most sense. And seeing something in front of us is one of the biggest ways of influencing what we think we're hearing. So I have another couple of entertaining examples. Let me see if I can show. I couldn't find my favorite Obama's elf because it's now been copy struck. But let me show you the a smaller version of it. Come on.
We could sing it though.
Yeah.
Oh, by myself.
Here we go. Let's see if I can. Can you? I don't know if you can hear this. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing there for a second, but this is the same thing that happens when you have when you're learning a word and you're unsure as to how it's structured. You don't know the exact form of it. Something called folk etymology. So if you have a word like one of my favorite ones was in the Phantom of the Metro. Okay, in a Dr. Gridlock column in the Washington Post. Oh, must be 15, 20 years ago. Somebody asked, why is it that when sometimes when we're in a station, the conductor will come on and say George Clooney, and I've called the Metro up, and all they do is laugh at me and tell me I need to have my hearing checked, and then so Dr. Gridlock prints that and says, does anybody know what this is about? And other people write and say, no, it's not George Clooney, it's George Clinton. And somebody else writes in and says, no, that's the code word. George Clooney is what they say when there's an emergency on the line. And somebody else writes in and said, no, it's a code word that the conductors use among to each other. There's a hot looking babe on the platform, and then somebody else says, no, it means something else. And all it is the recording of through a not so great loudspeaker of doors closing, doors closing, doors closing. And the funny thing is that the context is right there. Everybody sees the doors closing, and that's they push the button and the voice says doors closing the same way each time, but it comes out as George Clooney, George Clooney, and people interpret it as George Clooney. Why they think George Clooney is more plausible than doors closing, I don't know in that context. But if you are not familiar with the dialect, or you're not familiar with the pronunciation of a language, you can get all kinds of interesting interpretations. Do I have time for one more video? I really want to try this one. This is the famous examples of backwards masking or hidden messages in records that especially conspiracy theorists get all excited about. This is from a while back, but I don't know if this will work. Let's see what happens. So this is about backwards masking. Let me make this big.
If you play selected portions of Barack Obama's speeches backwards, you can hear the real truth about him, which is, of course, that he has pledged himself to Satan. It's true. Has to be. I saw it on the YouTube. All right, here's how it goes. In his acceptance speech when he won the presidential nomination, Obama repeated a phrase twice so as to be heard over the cheering.
I accept your nomination for presidency of the United States. Let me express.
Okay, hold it right there. This is the part where he pledges himself to Satan. If you play back that line, let me express, if you play it backwards, it's just too dramatic. It's too dramatic. You have to hear it yourself. You will be shocked. Shocked, I say.
Let me express self-esteem.
It's a very elaborate lead up.
But all of the hidden messages that people claim to find in rock songs or other yeah, Paul is dead. That's the favorite. Yeah. Paul is dead and Turn Me On Dead Man and all of the hidden Beatles messages. It's the same phenomenon. Our brains are primed to hear a particular phrase, especially if you already know in advance what it's going to be. If you listen to the same so-called Beatles secret messages without knowing what they're supposed to be, it's just garbage. You don't know what it is. But if you have it in mind, if you have it in front of you, say, "Oh my God, it's a secret message." It sounds exactly like that. And this is why, if you're teaching pronunciation, you don't ever want to go around the room with your students following along in the textbook as they read aloud, because you will not catch any of the mistakes, or you will catch some mistakes, but not not the main ones. What you need to do is put the book down and listen to see, can you understand them or not, right? And hope, and ideally you would be using a real conversation and not something already that they're reading from, so that you don't already have a script. But you can't catch the problems if you already have an idea of what it's supposed to sound like in your head.
Yeah, I think that's it really with the song lyrics too. I remember so many times, of course, the misheard song lyrics are so popular because, you know, the one person who hears it completely differently, you know, it's like, no, they're talking about this. And, you know, everyone laughs like, no, those aren't the lyrics, you know? So yeah, you find out when you're actually listening to it, when it happens in real life and you're just hearing it and then speaking about it. Yeah. Makes sense.
Does folding back, does this also help explain other sort of, you talked about figuring out where the formation is, phrases like "for all intensive purposes."
Oh
Those
yes,
kind
and dish
etymologies.
strainer instead of dish drainer. It would come out the same. Strainer has an unaspirated T. Drainer has a D. Dish drainer would come out the same, and you can only tell when you're spelling it that somebody has misinterpreted how it should be put together. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I've had some experiences too when I was trying to learn Spanish. When you hear the words in Spanish and you don't know what they mean and you come to a different conclusion. I mean, the example I can give you is there was a video I was watching and the woman was saying, gracias a Dios. And she wasn't saying thank you, goodbye. She was saying thanks to God. So it was very difficult. I had to play it 5 or 6 or 7 times. And finally I turned on the subtitles to figure out why she was saying that.
Is there a difference in stress? In
Gracias a
pronunciation?
Dios and gracias a Dios. I don't know. I don't think so.
There's not a difference in stress, but if you're saying gracias a Dios, it would be more adios. There'd be more of a ending to that. Whereas gracias a Dios would be to God. So it's more of a fall. I guess it's an intonation difference.
Uh-huh.
Gracias a Dios. Goodbye. Yeah, interesting. That's a neat one, Doug.
Yeah.
Hey, gosh, there was one more. Oh, I know. Now had to leave, but she had this question. This will be our final. It was about green words, so E words that are spelled, whether they're, however they're spelled. But she was focusing on the EA words, like, let's say, lean. She's hearing a little schwa toward the end of that vowel. Lean, meat. What do you think she's,
Lean,
and let me go back
meat.
and read that message because I
Oh,
put it
what
up.
what are the consonants that follow it? Because if it's an L, meal,
There we go.
feel, that's going to be syllabic L or dark L.
That's it.
Bring at the edge.
She writes the word real, that was it. The word real
real,
is underlined EA and it's green T word, but I hear an extra vowel, like a teeny tiny schwa between the
Yeah.
EA
Oh, yeah.
and L. I also hear an
Because
invisible Y.
you're up here with E, and then you have to go down to the O, real, or maybe over here, yeah, real. And so yes, you've got a yeah because of the green T, and then you have to move your tongue down to the O, and it's as if it's a almost like a syllabic L. Real, I could say that under some circumstances I would have two syllables in real, right?
And the same if we made that an R, like rear.
Yes, like or if you same thing with fire, right? Fire will have two syllables when it's at the end of a word like that, and there's nothing after the R. So so if you said feeling, that would only have two syllables because it would be feeling. But if you had I don't know how I feel, that would have two syllables because the L is at the end of the syllable and has a higher is higher on the sonority hierarchy than the Y. So I don't know if I can explain it to you, but the y and the o, the y is more consonantal than the L in this environment. So the L has to turn into a vowel
Nice.
between silence and the Y. So feel, fire, fear, but fearing, feeling, firing can they can be one syllable. That's why when you say how many syllables are in a word like fire, our answer is 1.5 because depending on what follows it, it could have one syllable or two syllables depending on if that R or that L is syllabic or not. That's what's going on here at the top of the vowel chart here with those R's and L's and Y's at the edge, because we're at the boundary. It's liminal between consonants and vowels, which is kind of cool.
So like fire truck, you know?
Yeah. So fire is it's fire truck, but fire engine, if you say it that way. Or you could say fire engine, or you could say fire engine with a glottal stop. That would put a consonant in between. But you say fire engine where the R is linking with the E of the engine, then you can fit the fire part into one syllable, fire engine, but fire truck.
Okay.
That's a nice example.
Yeah, and the green tea, like you know, it really makes a big difference. You say like feel, I feel it, or I feel it. You know, that's really.
Yeah, I feel it. I feel it. Right. So
I
before
feel
a
it.
vowel,
You could say without the ya at the end, without
I
the green
feel
tea,
it.
yeah, you go, I feel it. I feel it.
I feel it.
kind
And it doesn't even have to be the light L like you're doing. Feel it. It can still be feel it. Feel it. But if you had I feel good, as opposed to I feel it, notice the difference in syllables.
Feel good. Oof.
Yeah.
I feel good. I feel it. Yeah.
Or the James Brown, I feel.
I feel good.
Yeah. I feel good. Exactly.
Okay, I do feel good. This is a great way to end our
What
Fridays
fun.
at 5 Ask the Linguist. Really, I don't think that's a nice one. Everyone try that out, right? I feel it. I feel good. And notice.
I feel it. How many syllables have you got? Blow your mind. Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
I feel good.
I want to thank Dr. Robin Barr for being here with us.
Thank you all
Ask
for your
the Linguist.
questions too.
Keep coming with the questions and join us again. You know, we just launched today our level 2 sound awareness course. It is sold out. And we offer it about once every quarter with Dr. Barr at the center. And so just keep
We
that in
used
mind.
toothbrushes today.
fun.
Guess how?
Yep. So this is a taste. We love having everybody. Thank you so much. Have a great week. Stay safe and be healthy. Be well. Bye-bye, everybody.
You at TESOL.
See you at TESOL. Maybe.
Maybe.